Well, hello there, and welcome to Radical World, the podcast. And today we've got Rachel Sheila Kahn, someone that I have known for what, going on 3, 4 years maybe by now?
Yeah,
Been a
I
long
think so.
time. And I have lived vicariously through this young lady. She is doing so much wonderful work in her community, and she's going to tell us a little bit about that. Rachel, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Jose. Amazing.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Just who are you?
Wow. I mean, how long have you got? I
It's
guess
only a 30-minute thing, so
yeah, exactly. I'll keep it brief. Yeah, I guess I'm Rachel Sheila Khan. I'm a ecosystem architect and a circularity specialist, particularly in the fashion industry. I'm also a mother and um, a I guess a thought leader in a way. I've been in the fashion industry for a couple of decades and then moved into sustainability, circularity, and then into regenerative futures over the past 8 years. So feels like a long time now.
yeah, it's been a long time. And can I add to that list?
Yeah, of course.
TED Talk speaker.
TED Talk speaker, yeah. Yeah, you think just that small part.
Yeah, that's awesome. I loved it. Thank you for sharing that with the community and the work that you've done. So I told you a little bit about what we're trying to do with Radical World, which is to share with the world this radical view that there is a way for human beings to be different,
Yeah.
and as long as we can appreciate that human beings aren't what we think they are, and I think I wanted to start with that because as you've started to explore with your broader community this idea that they can be different and do different and work different,
Yeah.
and collaborate different, right? So
Just collaboration is radical sometimes, right? Like, 'cause we've been
exactly.
very used to being like, this is my dance space and that is your dance space in terms of like a business, an individual, a community, whatever. And very rarely do we come out and say, well, how can we create like win-win situations together? How could we create something larger than oneself, or one's company? So I think it's the collaboration itself is that sort of radical piece moving from, as I say, always like a place of from me to what can we do, what can we be, how can we co-create, and that's been radical for a lot of people, but also a really fun journey,
Yeah.
with our incubator collaborators.
And what do you like when you talk to these folks for the first time? What's what's their stance around what you're saying and how they react to it? Like,
It really depends on who they are, really. Some businesses come and are like slightly worried about, say, IP and things like that because it's not used to kind of sharing resources or supply chains um, or even just sort of radically coming together like that. So some of it's a bit of fear, if I'm honest. But then there are like really great people as well who've been used to collaborating before and then are collaborating now in whole other ways. So I work with people who've got sort of regenerative growing networks in India. And when Kishore particularly saw the incubator at first, he was like, well, actually, this is what we do in India all the time. And what you're creating is sort of like a virtual stroke in real life version of that, but in a worldwide aspect, I suppose. So for some people, it's quite natural as well. So I've been, really happy to see that happen and the joy of collaborating, as well as the sort of not complications, but challenges, I'd say.
I'm going to pull
Yes.
that up because I'm going to.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talk about is this idea that there is a fiat lens, right? We've built a fiat system of control, of we need to manipulate people. We need to keep them in line. And much of our system is designed to control and manipulate, right? And
Yeah.
we call that the fiat system. And then we call the lens with which most of us are used to seeing the world a fiat lens, because that all looks normal to us. It's normal for a company to tell people what they do, what they should do, and how to do it, and when to do it. And if they don't like it, too bad, we'll fire you. That's the sort of a normal thing. And that fiat lens sees that as that's the way the world works. And the radical lens, which I think you've just described perfectly, is where people are willing to collaborate.
Yeah.
People are willing to see that it's okay for us to actually work together and not have to control each other, not have to impose on each other in the way that isn't collaborative in nature. Is that consistent
Yeah.
with what you're saying?
Exactly. And actually, I do something in our education side of things, which was originally by a modern day philosopher called Charles Eisenstein, which is our musical chairs, where we show them the fiat, you're calling it a fiat lens, right? We show them that in a crude game of child's musical chairs, whereas when you lose your chair, you lose your job, you lose your access to healthcare, you lose your house and ability to make money, etc., etc. And when I played that with either my students or people in our academy for circularity, they sort of start getting into a very sort of abrupt game, and they start to. So one of my students said, "Can I elbow people out of the way?" Some of them hold the chairs to their seats, to their butts, right? It's very funny. And then one wins, and I'm like, "How do you feel?" I'm like, "You're Elon Musk now, right? Fabulous, you know." And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Turn around and look at everyone else, right?" And some people are very upset because they've had chairs swiped from underneath them and things. And then I
And
asked
likely
them,
some of them are sitting on the ground, right?
yeah, some of them are like, ah. And then I say, well, what would it look like if we created a new game? And I think that's what we've started to create, right? I'm not saying it's, fully into fruition, because I think it takes a very long time to grow something like we're doing. But I have them try on that there's 10, 20, 30 chairs in one chair, right? And there's enough chairs for everyone. And when you know that there's enough chairs for everyone, you can swap chairs and things like that. The conversation is then far more collaborative. There is far more conversation, and there's less fear, and there's that kind of then the adaptability of being able to start to collaborate in different ways, and physically playing that game really helps people to see that there are other ways to create the future of life, right? I call it life rather than work, because I don't see it as work.
Absolutely. And so do I. And thank you for
Yeah.
that. Because, yeah, the way we've created work as a subset of life, as a separate and apart subset of life, because we're not supposed to bring life into it, right?
No.
We can't have personal relationships because it's just work, right? Professional. You got to be professional relationships, which means that you come in, you act your role, and then you leave, and you feel empty because you've just done something that you didn't get connected with your colleagues. You didn't have fun in doing the work that you were doing. You've simply gone and spent a bunch of time doing something for someone else without the passion, the love, the caring, the relationships for what you're doing. I think that's where a lot of people work today.
Yeah. 100%, I really do. And when we first did the conversations for the incubator, when we created the incubator, it was about we. I had the initial idea and the workings out of with actually from other places, right, as well. So I want to continue acknowledge like everyone that's been involved in it, including yourself, right? Like it wouldn't be called a collaborative without you, right?
Right.
So but we started to come together with all of the different players and say, what would you like out of something like this, right? So we designed it with them, right? As okay, so we co-created the potential benefits that would have that community start to thrive, right? And that was super interesting to see. And I didn't launch it until I got enough people sort of coming together to say what that was, and so on and so forth throughout the journey of the ecosystem. It has been the same, continually transforming it and working it in a living systems way. That's the joy of coming together with other people. I'm not on my own with it.
Right.
You know, there's even with growing the community, other people introduce other people as well. You know, and it's a natural evolving state, I'd say.
And when you describe the incubator, tell us a little bit about the incubator and the type of folks that are playing a role there.
I mean, it was started really because I was working as a consultant and getting quite a lot of people who were micro startups, and I'd always worked with startups before, or very tiny one-person companies or consultants and designers, and there was a mass interest in people who were inside of other businesses as well, and there's a real interest in applying circularity, sustainability, and working regeneratively, but it's from the smaller scale. And yeah, we wanted to start to come together to almost act as a larger entity, as a forest, right? So we designed it and grew it as a natural living system. Each tree in the forest is a different niche of clothing or accessories or potential sort of niche areas like regenerative growing. And they can come together in their trees and start to co-create, but also they can come out and start to create new brands or collaborative marketing. Or so it was very pragmatic, and is very pragmatic, because I'm originally from Stoke-on-Trent, which no one will know probably well, as it's the north of the UK, and I could hear one of my friends sort of in my head, my old friends sort of going, well, okay, that's all well and good, a forest, a facilitator's reach, but how are you going to actually tangibly make that happen? So I've always been very much, okay, well, in this business as usual landscape, this is how we can transition towards some kind of radical future. Yeah, so the incubator was that. It was a coming together to co-create, to create continual benefits, that together we could be bigger as one or do more as one.
And you're teaching. You've got the incubator. What else? What else are you doing?
Oh yeah, I'm teaching. I'm a lecturer at the university master's level. I'm teaching business, particularly sustainability and ethics. We also have our academy where we teach in real circularity. We are now, I say we as well, because it's with Ken also. We are authors of our book, Real Circularity. That's us on the back. And Ken worked on the original Cradle to Cradle. He was actually the first member of the Ecosystem Incubator. And I was like amazed that he would join. I was like, amazing. And now that we're business partners, it's like the coming together of that was a collaboration itself, lifting each other with each other's different and synergistic skills and practice. So there's that, and the incubator, and I work a lot as well, help mentoring young entrepreneurs who are wanting to come on similar journeys, or grow a brand or that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot going on.
And what you just described about coming together, I mean, that's Matt and I doing the same thing, and working with Radical World. And so from because you started this with the real in the clothing fashion industry, right? And that was sort of, that's where you come from. You come from that space.
Yeah,
And
I thought it best to be in my domain. I know that I've got a network of people already doing it, but it has moved in a little bit into other spaces because inherently circularity particularly is an inter-industry activity. So we've had some people, we wanted to go a bit bigger on we were doing a summit on our Real Circularity Summit particularly, and we were like, actually, we'd like to take this into industry, and we've had interest from the world's first circular bike, and head of Google Circularity, and as well as all of our amazing people in the fashions landscape. And then just random things happen, whereas I sort of found other people who are in, say, outdoors activities. So they're called tent share. They share tents, right? And she just picks up all the festival waste. Here in the UK, a lot of people are very slovenly and leave tents.
It's not just in the UK.
They leave things, and she goes and picks them all up. And she said, "I've got these sleeping bags. What do I do with them?" I said, "I could bring them here." So I added my design skills, and I worked with my sister. And again, we created a collaboration there where we created this thing called Love Big Coats, which is sleeping bags from festivals into coats. And it's never going to make me £1 million, but actually it's been a really great attractor to our work because it's a tangible thing, right? And
right,
it's
right.
Can see that, and I can see that you're collaborating with all these other people, right? And including for QR patches that we've done with another company, and it doesn't have to be transactional. That's the joy of this.
Right.
It's okay, how can we be creative? How can we raise each other? And Tent Share always says that because the coats are there, it's something that is then tangible and has people come and look at her world too, and vice versa. So yeah.
So you're doing all of this, and you've got 2 boys, is that right?
2 boys, yes.
How do you find time to do all this?
Time for me isn't as linear as I thought it was, in a way, right? It's actually, if you focus, it's not even just focus. It's I like a willingness. I want to get out of bed and do this. It brings me joy every day.
Very motivating, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
It's like
motivating.
air in my lungs. It's wow, I want to get up and do this. People want to come onto Zooms and collaborate and enjoy immensely all of this kind of creativity that's happening, right?
I was doing an interview earlier this week with a gentleman who is the co-founder of, I don't know if you've ever heard of Liberating Structures.
No.
And
sounds like I should.
Yes, you should. And anyway, and his name is Henry Henri. And throughout the interview, because he worked for the same company for 30 years,
Yeah.
and throughout the interview, back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, so a little bit different era than what we're doing. And throughout the interview, he said, I was working with this team in Belgium. I love them. I was working with this team in Denmark. We had so much fun. I was working with this thing, and he was the team lead, and he had the wherewithal to have these collaborative relationships with his teams. Not, he didn't come in and say, I'm the boss now, and Mr. such and such, right? It was just the opposite. And it is amazing to see that the system we've built up didn't exist everywhere. There were pockets of people that were doing this what we're talking about doing now
Yeah.
has existed in different places, and that motivation that you were talking about for you, that thing of waking up and wanting to do this, I think is one, that you're doing something and it's fun, and it's, you're being creative, you're doing the thing you want to do, but also the fact that it's, as you said, it's not linear. I don't have to do that only, right? You can do the thing that feels right today, and tomorrow you can do the other thing because it feels right tomorrow. Because the truth is, it gets boring to do the same thing day in and day out, and we've forced ourselves to do the same tasks day in and day out for many, many years.
Yeah. And I get with collaboration though, it's not just me though now.
No.
Like, well, especially when we come into the co-creation pods, there's other people using their specialist skills that I don't have either.
Exactly.
Like that's their unique, amazing abilities. Let's actually create that so that we're creating that thrivability together. Like that's the gorgeous thing, that it's not just me doing it. I'm driving a lot of it. I'm not going to say I'm not, but there is now this ability to move into another space with it.
Yes.
To not let go. I don't want to say let go. It's not
right.
that. It's more like let thrive. Okay, that's we're going to create something that showcases your inherent skills with this tangible thing.
Absolutely. And for me, that there's its own motivation in seeing a collaboration and collaborators mature in in that environment, right?
Yeah.
And succeed in that environment, because there's I think, just as in with the fiat lens, that I think it's sort of, they call it Schadenfreude. Are you familiar with that term? It's a German word, and I think I misspoke it because I can't pronounce German, but it basically means to revel or enjoy someone else's misery.
Oh wow. Okay.
Right? It's a feeling where someone that you don't care for is suffering in some way, and I believe that this fiat lens creates a lot of that in the workplace, where someone else's failure is actually enjoyed, reveled in by other members of the organization. And I think that collaborating in a radical organization is really the opposite. It's reveling in each other's success, because there are enough chairs, as you pointed out earlier.
Yeah.
Right.
And my success is our success.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Then becomes, and my business partner Simon, who's been a big part of like co-creating the ecosystem, always says it's a musketeerdom. That actually we're like, we are the musketeers coming together. Yeah.
And that's it, right? Because our nature is in abundance, in a place of ability to help. That's what we want to do. Right? But when we're put in a position of having to fight for whatever little crumb we can get, then we fight. And then we say, well, human nature is to be doing that. And yeah, it is, if you're set up to do that. If you're
in that system,
we set up a system, we set up a mindset, we set up a lens where that all seems normal.
Yeah.
And so for us with Radical World, it's not enough to think about that we as people have to grow and see for ourselves that that lens isn't reality,
Mm.
but that we can actually collaborate and create communities of collaboration that are not only helping each other out, but learning how to collaborate better. Because we've had hundreds of years of the fiat system of how to fight for that chair,
Yeah.
right? And we've come up with all kinds of ways to make it sort of, the law is about, oh, look at that. The law,
Whoa.
the law is about um, how do we fight fairly? But it's not about not fighting. It's about how we fight fairly,
Mm.
right? We don't think of our law as collaboration. We have not built a system of legal framework for collaborating. We've built a legal framework for how to fight fairly. So we set up contracts and agreements as well. You have to do this fairly and that fairly, but we know we're going to have a confrontation. So let's build these agreements to actually do that confrontation, right? So we have to start from a place of no, it isn't about confrontation. Otherwise, we'll get back to where we're at. And it sounds like to me that you're doing that. That's really sort of the way that you and your community are communicating.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of a hybrid effect, right? I know that where we are is where we are,
Yeah.
and we did actually sit down with a lawyer and create a collaborative agreement, very loose, to help people to be able to be in the space, right? Because and transition themselves with us, right? And actually haven't massively used it yet. Like for some of the very small collaborations, coming together in a very a small amount of time for, say, collaborative marketing or coming together for a trade show or something like that. It's not necessary. But when we're looking at something where we're setting up something very real that will be a longer term investment of people's time and energy and sometimes money, right? Then we do sort of say, okay, we can use a hybrid approach here, and I'm not afraid of working in that way at all. So yeah.
Well, have you heard of from a legal perspective, have you heard of the conscious contract movement?
Yes. I think
Okay.
I did speak to them at first. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's very much it is an agreement. It's still done by lawyers. It's still an agreement. But the lens with which the parties and the lawyer is looking at things is not of the zero sum game, right?
Yeah.
It's
No.
already an approach of how do we figure how do we do this so that it's not about you winning or me winning, but us collaborating.
No, it was like that. Like, how do we actually just make it so that everyone's seen on a document, and that
Exactly.
was literally it. It's um, so yeah, like when I explained it to him, in a normal lawyer, he was actually like, "Oh, I get that. We could do this, because I'd set the context up. This is what we're doing. We're coming
Right.
together to do this. It might look like this, or like this, or like this. It could be infinite ways. It could be 100 people. It could be 3 people. It could be 2 people. So something that was very breathable just came about, which was really nice to see from a business as usual perspective, moving into something very different for them. So
It sounds like you're being very practical with this. It's like whatever works, as long as we're going in the direction of collaborating, the direction of letting people's motivation come through,
yeah.
of letting people really live their truth in a way that is coming through the with the community. So for me, the idea of seeing this evolve in your space, how do you see folks coming in and reproducing this, not just for themselves, but for their friends, for their family, for their neighbors? Are you seeing that at this
Yeah.
point?
Well, I think it's inspired some people to start their own communities for sure in other micro niches. And yeah, I mean, I guess I've taken it out into my own community as well. Like where I live, there's a block of 10 flats, and just starting to have them try on this kind of new way of living, like, because I don't see it as being it's only in the business space. Actually, this can be in a community aspect.
Exactly.
And then within the different pods, I call them seed pods, there's different pods of ideas that then start to just grow little tiny, even if it's just a little tiny seedling that comes up.
Do you know what that's called, by the way?
What's that?
That little tiny thing that grows out of a seed.
Yes.
It's called a radical.
It isn't. Oh, wow. I love that. That's going into the incubator 100%. It's called a radical. Really?
A radical, yes.
Wow. No, that's it. Even if we just start the conversation and start moving towards it with each other, that, is a joy, even to just start putting together some things on paper. So, yeah, I mean, definitely others have set up their own stuff, and yeah, it's come then, as I said, from other aspects as well, outside of the incubator. So it sort of doesn't have to be contained in there, but it does help, that there's a place of holding space for collaboration, of a facilitation of it. I found as well I had to step back and let it grow how it needed to grow, because there was one point where I was like, okay, we need to make sure I'm committing to all of the meetings and blah, blah, blah. And actually what they needed, and they said to me that they needed, was just a bit more of a chilled out space as well. So actually I'm getting feedback into, okay, this is how we need this to grow and evolve, at the same sort of time. We don't have to have, all of these different things going on, right?
Right.
They can be a part of creating what's there, just as much as I can.
Well, and you said it's, and I love that, and I say it, and I've actually pulled back from saying it sometimes, because a lot of people say, what do you mean by life or living? And because for me, the word life is everything.
Yeah.
Right? It's everything. It's all of us. It's every plant. It's every animal. It's everything. And when we are living that life, expressing it to its fullest, and we have people who are willing to help us express it to its fullest by giving us the space, giving us the support, giving us the wherewithal to make it happen. I see it now. I love your metaphor of the chair, because I see it as people bringing you the chair when it's needed.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about pulling the chair away, but actually saying, here, I have a chair for you at this moment, the right chair to serve you at this very moment. And you need that high chair? Here's a high chair. You need a low chair? Here's a low chair. You need a chair that reclines? Here's a low, that type of understanding for each other
exactly
is living.
Yes, and it's not like a charitable thing, like I'm going to give away all of my energy, all of my time, all of my da da da. No, it's a win-win situation. It's a flow. It's a moving, living, breathing thing.
Like life.
Like life, yes.
Like life.
Exactly.
The trees don't generate oxygen as a kind out of the kindness of their hearts.
Yeah.
It's what they expel when they take in the carbon. So it's for us to recognize that we all generate different things.
100%.
Right.
We look at it and call that kind of thing the living and breathing tree, and the tree that creates also habitat for animals, and the roots, and they've got the mycelium and everything, right? And the leaves come off and they create nutrients. We call it in our real circularity work, outside of that, processional benefits. So
Right.
you're continually creating these processional benefits that also become benefits for you. And if you see yourself or your organization or your business or your community, or even if you're in politics, that I see that this kind of way of living can be placed into every different situation. But if you see it as like that you are that living, breathing thing, and that you are, if you expel, you get something, not in return in a kind of give and take sort of thing, but in a natural
flow.
It's a regenerative flow way, then you're just creating that as a processional benefit of just being that business, or just being that individual, or just being that community, or just being that political party, or whatever you want to, I'd like a decentralized sort of thing going on, but
right.
whatever. Yeah. But that you're continually doing that because that it's gonna, it's gonna breathe back in. So
we've been trying to keep these short, and so we've been at it for 36 minutes, which is awesome. I was wondering if there was anything you wanted to say that you haven't said.
Gosh. On the spot there. Gosh, I don't know. I guess like, well, you'll find me online. Just go and delve in and look at what's going on there. We have all the different websites. Everything is linked, and we're doing a summit in June, which we're really looking forward to, with Ken and all of the different industry elements that I spoke about earlier on. And yeah, I just love doing it. So I'm going to continue whatever happens. So
I have to do this.
Oh, you did? Yeah. Does that do it on me too? No, it doesn't do anything.
It's the Mac, so I'm not sure if you're on the Mac or not.
I'm on the Mac. But...
when we met, I was taken by your energy and by your awesome ability to take things in and run with them. And you, of the many hundreds, thousands of people that I have met on this journey over the last 5-6 years, you are one of those people that has continually popped up for me as someone who is grasping the next thing and running with it safely. But also remembering everybody and everything that has contributed to that. And it feels so special to have known you, to know you, to be part of everything you're doing, even if it is tangentially, not on a regular basis. But it's an honor, and I appreciate.
No, and vice versa. When the regenerative way is to acknowledge all of the people whether they're dead or alive, that have inspired you on the journey. So I'm constantly posting. Whenever I post, I'm like, at this person, at that person. Donella Meadows, even though she doesn't have an at anymore because she's not alive. Actually, we need to acknowledge that it's not just us, that it's the we now and the we of the past.
Absolutely.
All of that deep, great roots and mulch, if we're going to go into the regenerative stance.
It's all the people that brought us the chair.
100%. Exactly. Yes.
because that's what we do for each other.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
Love it.
I'm okay. I've got goosebumps. Thank you so much for
Thank
this
you.
conversation today. Um, it's been a while, so I think we need to take a conversation offline as well, because I
100%.
want to catch up. And thank you not only for taking the time to be here, for the wonderful stuff you've done with the TED Talk and all of those other things, but also for just being you and allowing your life to shine as well as it does. So I
And
really,
to you
truly
too.
appreciate that.
And to you too.
Carlos, I don't know about next week, but I think we've got another Radical Pioneers next week. And so episode 5 is coming. We're talking about, we've been talking about fiat and the fiat lens, and we're going to be talking about the radical lens coming up next week. So join us next week as Matt and I and Tulio have a conversation around what is the radical lens, because we've talked quite a bit about all that darkness that we see in our society today and the fiat system. What is the radical lens, and how do we see ourselves and the possibility of collaborating? What Rachel is already doing. Let's talk about that next week. So see you next week. Rachel, thank you again.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon. Ciao,
See you soon.
everybody.